Hello YouTube, how's everyone doing? It's Professional here. Welcome back to my playthrough of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Now, I apologize for this part being delayed by a few days. I've just been busy with a few things, but I am continuing the series and I'm going to try my best to have a part up every single day for you guys. So I hope that you guys enjoy this. We're hopefully going to get to the end of the trial today and find out exactly what Shamspeare is hiding, because I feel like he's killed the previous tenant in that lodge and he wants the treasure that's hidden in that lodge the convict had. So we're gonna find out what's going on here. We're gonna bring in Miss Green to testify too. And if you guys enjoy this series, please do drop a like on it because it does help the series out. Like I said, I'm gonna try to have a part up each day. If I don't, just please be patient with me, but I will have this entire series up. So thank you guys for watching. Let's start up here right now. February 23rd, 11:32 a.m. The Old Bailey. Defendant's Antechamber. Joyful, jubilant, jumping jacks. Oh, Mr. Natsume. I'm so pleased for you. Locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire and non-locum judicial assistant Miss Mikotoba Esquires. Now finally, at long last, there can be proof. Proof that I'm innocent and proof that my tea is innocent. Good morning, my dear fellows. Herlock Sholmes. May you drink my tepid tea and fall forever silent. I thought the tea was innocent. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, you came. How wonderful. Please, save your derision. I know what you're all thinking. Good morning, he says, when it's verily near time for luncheon. Your scorn is written clearly across your faces. Nobody said or thought anything of the sort. The truth is, I was determined that today would be the day, as sleep seduced me last night, I thought. Tomorrow, for once, I shall not oversleep. I'll rise early and be present in court to support my companions. Such spirited determination has a beauty all of its own, does it not? Oh yes. And then I begin to muse on the subject. Why do people oversleep, I queried. Why time after time do they make the same foolish blunder? And the answer came to me at once. It's so delightfully simple. People oversleep because they sleep. Okay. Sometimes his deductions are a little bit stupid. Well, is that not an astute, insight into the matter? Oh, yes. Upon which realization, I attempted an experiment. I didn't sleep a wink all night. And the results? By first light, I was exhausted, and began to be assailed by fits of drowsiness. Shocking. Yeah, that happens if you don't sleep. And so, the conclusion of last night's experiment is this. A good night's sleep is quite simply essential. Yes, I think most of us probably knew that already. What others presuppose I prove by experimentation, that my dear fellow is the scientific method. Ah yes, and one more thing. Do you remember this? Yes, of course, it's the poison that Miss Green was about to drink at the hospital yesterday. Oh, you didn't manage to... It was a laborious task as the bottle was near empty, but such inconveniences do not hinder Sholmes. I managed to confirm that it contained strychnine. Oh, so I was right. Perhaps, though of course such circumstantial evidence doesn't prove Miss Green's guilt. I shall leave the bottle in your care now, but licking the inside of the neck is not recommended. Bottle found in the possession of Miss Green with traces of the slow-acting poison strychnine inside. So that's how Miss Green poisoned Shamspeare, because she wanted payback because he killed her fiancé. Could I have a word? Who's this? Oh no, the Inspector Gregson. Gregson, how good of you to come. Forget it. Excuse me. Wait a minute, Inspector. I don't wish to make a nuisance of myself. From the look on your face, I'd say it's someone else who you think is making a nuisance of himself. My dear Inspector, please speak freely. Pretend that I'm not here. Believe me, if I could do that, life would be a whole lot simpler for me. Do you have the results, Inspector, of the investigation of Mr. Shamspeare's room? Not yet. Shouldn't be long now, though. No, I'm here about something else. That dead convict, actually. Oh, you mean the man from this newspaper article we discovered yesterday in Mr. Shamspeare's room. Don't tell me he was poisoned too. A man by the name of, yes, Selden. I went through the archives at the yard and dug out the fellow's file. There's something in there that, well, it caught my eye. Something caught your eye? What, Inspector, what? I've copied out the relevant parts for you so you can read it for yourselves. Thank you. Well, the Inspector actually helped. Capital Offenders File. Scotland Yard's file about the convicted criminal Selden includes a newspaper article about him dying of an illness in prison. These documents... Let me see this. Let's take a look at this here. 18 counts of burglary, 6 counts of suspected murder. Died of natural causes while in prison. His final moments witnessed by his cellmate. Wow, so this is a really bad guy. The estimated 1,000 pounds worth of loot he stole remains unrecovered. Now, 1,000 pounds in Britain, that's their currency. So don't think that this is like, pounds like weight. I'm gonna say though that 1,000 pounds in that time period, that would have been an insane amount of money. Let me just look that up really quick. I'm just curious. Let's see, 1,000 pounds in Victorian times. Let's see, how much is that worth? Okay, so I looked it up. 1,000 pounds in 1880 would be, because I'm 1880, I'm going by that year because that's around the year that Sherlock Holmes was. This is the same exact time. 1880, it would be about 114,000 equivalent today. That's how much money that would be worth back then, so that's an insane amount of money. Died of natural causes while in prison. His final was witnessed by his only cellmate. I'm really curious whether that cellmate is actually Shamspeare. That cellmate could be Shamspeare, and Selden might have told him about the money. The estimated 1,000 pounds of worth of loot he stole remains unrecovered. Condemned criminal dies of natural causes in prison. Manchester Strangeway Prison announced the death of convicted murderer and burglar Selden by natural causes in the early hours this morning. He had been suffering with fever since the end of October. Alerted by the shouts of his fellow cellmate, medical staff arrived to find him already dead before his capital punishment could be carried out. These documents include the details that were in a newspaper cutting we found in Mr. Shamspeare's room. I'll rearrange everything in the court records so we don't have to duplicate information. Thank you, Susato. Why are you giving us a copy of this important file, though? Well, you're the ones who turned up the clue in the first place, aren't you? I'm just making sure things get handled in the proper fashion. Oh, Scotland Yard's workings are so wonderful. Indeed, my dear fellows, and the inspector here is a shining diamond in its crown. A shining diamond in the rough, maybe. Look, I just don't want to be beholden to a lawyer, that's all. Counsel for the defense and the defendant. Court proceedings are about to resume. Make your way into the courtroom at once. Oh, there's a scary music. Well, I shall leave you then. I'll be listening with interest from the public gallery. Not nodding off at all, certainly not. Thank you, Mr. Sholmes. I'm rather tired of seeing Mr. Mustache in flood of tears personally, so... the best of luck to you. Locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Yes, Mr. Natsume. It's time, isn't it? Yes, this is it. Miss Olive Green and Mr. William Shamspeare. This is going to be the final battle. Man, I feel so bad for him. He has the worst luck ever. I won't really have saved Sasaki-san until I've exposed the whole truth of everything that's been going on. But it's all coming to a head now. You can do it, Reinosuke. You have to. (23rd February, 12:30 p.m. The Old Bailey. Courtroom. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session again now. Before the recess, we heard a most startling accusation from the defense. Namely, that the victim of the case we heard here only a few days ago is the true perpetrator of this incident. A reckless, rash, and prejudiced charge of wrongdoing, in my opinion, my lord. However, the prosecution has tried to extend every courtesy to this amateur newcomer from dubious, eastern shores. Thank you for that backhanded consideration. A rather cold assessment from the honorable British prosecutor, I must say. So, Lord Van Zeeks, is a new witness present and ready to take the stand? Ready and waiting in the witness's antechamber, my lord. Very well. Bailiff, bring the witnesses in. Oh, Miss Green is painting right there. Witnesses, state your names and occupations for the court, please. William Shamspeare, my liege. For mine occupation, I can say only that I be a tragic victim to be pitied. No, you're not a victim. Currently unemployed, in other words. I'm Olive Green. I'm a fledgling artist. Well, no. Not a fledgling, really. A hopeless failure who's too weak-spirited to admit she has no talent, I suppose. Also currently unemployed, in other words. What a coterie. Mr. Shamspeare, my lord, I am thy humble servant. I'm afraid that you are no longer merely the victim in this affair. The possibility has been raised that you are in fact the assailant, intent on taking the life of your fellow lodger. The part you have played in this whole business will be thoroughly scrutinized, I assure you. I would for naught else, my lord. He seems very confident in himself. And Miss Green. Yes? You are aware of the reason you have been summoned to this courtroom today, I presume. Yes, the officer did explain. He said I poisoned this ridiculous buffoon. Well, he is a buffoon. And do you accept the charge, Miss Green? I don't know anything about any poisoning. And I don't know anything about this man. No, you do know him, Miss Green. The thing is, I feel bad for Miss Green because I'm gonna have to cross-examine her, but Miss Green tried to kill Shamspeare here, but she tried to kill Shamspeare because Shamspeare is a murderer. He killed her fiancé. Come, lady, die to live. We haven't proven it yet, but I'm very confident Shamspeare did it. Verily, I know not thy prickly, pigmented personage. Very well. Let us proceed with the matter at hand. That being as to ascertain whether or not Miss Green has any involvement in this affair. It's all very strange indeed. Why would you suspect me? I barely ever go to the East End anyway. It so happens that I passed by that neighborhood 6 days ago, that's all. And on the night that this man was poisoned, I was still in hospital, fighting for my life. Yes, having been unfortunately caught up in the incident on the street outside the Garridip household. But there's a reason she was outside the Garridip household. It's crazy how these cases just connect to one another. An incident that rendered you unconscious for some 3 days. I was struck in the middle of my back by a knife, though no fault of my own, and now I'm under suspicion? What other irrelevant things might I be suspected of? It's all very disturbing. Your energies may be better spent worrying about random knife attacks, I feel, Miss Green. At this point in time, all that appears to connect you with Mr. Shamspeare's lodging is the Briar Road incident of 6 days ago. That's why we would like you to testify formally now about exactly what happened. Oh no. The incident 6 days ago? You mean you want me to relieve that awful accident? Unfortunately, yes. Please tell the court what happened that day. And of course, we will be interested to hear from you about your movements that day too, Mr. Shamspeare. Eh? But what happened 6 days ago has nothing to do with me being poisoned. No, it's very relevant. Let us proceed then. The witnesses will present their formal testimony to the court. On the subject of the incident that took place on Briar Road, the evening of the 17th of February. The evening of 17th of February. It was 6 days ago at about 5 p.m. I was walking along in the snow when I was suddenly stabbed in the back. Coincidentally, it happened to be just outside the house where the men in this case have their lodgings. I was at the tavern on the eve of which thou speakest, for I had bespoke my supper. It was the first time I'd been in the area. I had a little matter to attend to, that's all. Anyway, I was admitted straight to the hospital, so I knew nothing about all this business. Yes, a second incident inside a week, at what I believe to be aptly described as the haunted lodgings. One can only presume this is a most unfortunate coincidence. Meanwhile, you say you were not in your room, Mr. Shamspeare. 'Twas the following morning, when I did awaken, that I learned of the dire events. Mary, what a commotion did the officers of the law make, on the floor above mine. When Sasaki-san was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. As suspected, there is nothing connecting these two witnesses but happenstance. No, there's a connection. It's true, it does seem as though they're unrelated at first glance, but I'm not so sure. There's something lurking in the shadows here, I feel certain of it. And this is my one and only chance to expose it. Counsel, you may now cross-examine these two witnesses if you wish. Yes, my lord. It was 6 days ago at about 5 p.m. I was walking along in the snow when I was suddenly stabbed in the back. Hold it! I'm well acquainted with the case. I'm sorry you had to go through that. It was awful. I still can't believe I was unconscious for so long. And I woke up to find that the case had been solved and the culprit arrested. Yes, the incident has been resolved already. Perhaps it would help you to consider it a bad dream that ended with your, awakening and should now be forgotten. Yes, I suppose so, thank you. But before you put it completely behind you, Miss Green, I need you to remember the details one last time. You must tell the court exactly what happened that day, for us to arrive at the truth about this new case. The trouble is, there's nothing to tell really. I was just walking along the pavement. Coincidentally, it happened to be just outside the house where the men in this case have their lodgings. Hold it! What were you doing there that day, though? What do you mean? The art school you attend. What's it called? Ah, yes. It's the Thorndike Academy of Fine Arts. According to Mr. Sholmes, that's just in the vicinity of Brixton Road, which is some 10 stops away from the scene on the underground. I believe you mentioned before that you also live on Brixton Road, isn't that right? So that's really far. So then why would you have been walking along Briar Road in the middle of the East End? Well, it's because, oh yes, of course. I thought it might make a nice picture. The witness is a student of art. City-dwelling artists can't all paint grand urban vistas. That's right. I happen to like the crumbling look of that part of town. She's getting really nervous. Perhaps quaint would have been a less grating term. The point is, she's definitely hiding something. Yes, it seems she's not going to be forthcoming with the truth. If she's trying to hide why she was there that evening, it must mean there's a reason for her not wanting us to know. That's the key to this. And you, Mr. Shamspeare, on the evening of the incident 6 days ago, would you tell the court what exactly you were doing? 'Twould be my pleasure, sure, sire. Man, I hate this guy so much. I was at the tavern on the eve of which thou speakst, for I had bespoke my supper. Hold it! A tavern, you say? Which one? 'Twas the Slug and Salad where I did tarry. 'Tis a jewel in the East End. And a little unexpected, I feel. What do you mean, Lord Van Zeeks? The Slug and Salad offers unusually fine dining, for the locality at least. Not an establishment you'd expect to be patronized by a man with not even a crumb of bread in his room. Wow, Lord Van Zeeks actually helped us, he's right. It's true, the menu lists premium crusts of bread and glasses of water in different levels of cloudiness. I would have expected Grub's Grubbery in the local vicinity to be more appropriate for your means. Watery soup and mushy peas, or rather, soupy water and pea-like mush. All equally appetizing. I just wanted to try some water in a different pub for once. What's wrong with that? So look, when he starts speaking all normally like that, he gets nervous. So when he's nervous, he starts speaking normally, not in that Shakespearean language. How different can water really be? Or perhaps, there's a more plausible explanation. A specific reason why he had to go to that particular establishment. Yep, agreed. The fact that on the day of all days, he dined at a place he wouldn't normally, it does stand out. So Mr. Shamspeare's own actions on the day of the incident 6 days ago were slightly suspicious. I wonder if we have some evidence that can explain those actions. Do we have evidence that proves why he was there? Oh wait, it's the, wait a second, I remember there was a letter, right, there was a letter, we don't have it yet, so I'm gonna say not at the moment. I wish we did, but sadly I can't think of anything at the moment. If we find a clue that could explain why Mr. Shamspeare went there, we must present it to the court. Yes, absolutely. It will be that letter to Miss Green, telling her to meet, someone. And it was I'm pretty sure it was at that restaurant. If that is all in the matter, counsel, I would ask Miss Green to reiterate her next statement. It was the first time I'd been in the area. I had little matter to attend to, that's all.
Hold it!
What little matter, Miss Green? Please elaborate. It was nothing, really. It's not worth mentioning. Everything is worth mentioning, especially in a case like this. If you remember, you mentioned it to us yesterday at the hospital. Ah. It was related to the card you were holding. Miss Green. What was that? She clearly just hid something behind her back. From memory, I believe the card contained a note that read, I have information regarding the death of Duncan Ross. What does that matter? This has nothing to do with Duncan. Oh, look.
Excuse me.
Mr. Shamspeare, do you have something to share with the court? To be or not to be? That is the question. Ah, pray forgive me. The great bard's words springeth from within me, with a near a thought. Don't tell me. It's because you're possessed by Shakespeare's spirit, right? Hearing Miss Green's words a moment ago seemed to make you think of something. Something of relevance, perhaps. Well? Nay, nay, sire. 'Twas nothing at all. He's the one who summoned Miss Green to that restaurant. Presumably, you know the name, though. Mr. Duncan Ross, I mean. After all, you were both lodgers in the same house. I would it were so, but sadly nay. Lodging be a lonely occupation, sire. My lodging fellows be rarely known to me. So you haven't heard of him, even though he passed away in the room just one floor above yours. Exactly. Shamspeare's the one who killed him. Miss Green. Me, my lord? Have I done something wrong? The card that was mentioned before, containing the note, do you have it upon your person? I do, yes, but I don't need it anymore. In fact, I should throw it away, really. Before you dispose of it, the court will take it as evidence, please. A note in an envelope that seems to have been ripped open rather roughly. It contains instructions to meet with someone who claims to have information about Duncan Ross. And remember, that piece of ripped envelope was found in Shamspeare's room. It proves that Miss Green was in his room. Of course, that's what links Mr. Shamspeare and Miss Green. It's Duncan Ross. Now, continue with your testimony, please, Miss Green. Anyway, I was admitted straight to the hospital, so I knew nothing about all of this business.
Hold it!
Yes, you didn't regain consciousness until the day after the trial, did you? In the early hours. Exactly. So how could I have had anything to do with it? And yet you still haul me in here to court like this, honestly. So at the time of the poisoning, the witness was unconscious in her hospital bed. Could there be a more airtight alibi, I ask you? I think she left the poison on there that same day that she got stabbed, but Shamspeare didn't blow into the gas valve until 6 days later. And yet, in spite of that, you claim that I was the culprit. Well, but you certainly haven't produced any evidence to support your wild claim, have you? None at all. There you have it. The good lady has yet to see evidence, my Lord Nipponese friend. I'm working on it. Counsel, I will point out here that the jury's next decision will be final. We're really up against the wall here. Oh, Mr. Naruhodo, you pursued Mr. Shamspeare wonderfully there. It's worked out well, hasn't it? We have a new clue at last. Alright, now I need to pull off a really insightful objection somewhere. Well, as you've managed to expose this promising new angle, I wonder if you should perhaps try to develop that. Ah, yes, of course. And yelling out objections isn't necessarily the best way to do that, I suppose. Let's look at this, The envelope has been ripped open rather carelessly, hasn't it? Miss Green strikes me as the type to open correspondence more neatly than that. Because she was anxious to see what was inside about her fiancé. Ah, what is it? The way the envelope is torn, I'm almost sure I've seen that exact shape somewhere. Yup, in Mr. Shamspeare's room. Oh, you don't mean... Were you thinking of this piece of evidence, Mr. Naruhodo? Exactly. That's it. Try to match them up. It fits perfectly. They go together perfectly. This torn-off end of the envelope clearly belongs to this card. Okay, so we updated the evidence. Miss Green's card, a note in an envelope that seems to have been ripped open rather roughly. The envelope fits perfectly with a torn-off piece of evidence found at the scene of the crime. A ripped piece of an envelope that was found in Mr. Shamspeare's room. It fits perfectly with an envelope. Okay. Am I able to read this, though? Okay, I guess I gotta skip this, because I wanted to see if I can read the note, just skip,
Hold it!
A tavern, you say? Okay. And now we skip through this, because we're gonna pursue Shamspeare on this. We do. Mr. Shamspeare. Yes, sire? On the day in question, is it not the case that you visited the Slug and Salad, a place you don't normally patronize? For a very particular reason. I don't know what you're talking about. Pray, if thou hast some purpose, speakest. Very well, I will present the court with evidence. Evidence that explains why you had to be at the Slug and Salad that day. Namely, Miss Green's card.
Take that!
I believe this card reveals the answer. Good lord. Miss Green's card, you mean? That's right, my lord. It reads, I have information regarding the death of Duncan Ross. Come to the Slug and Salad on Briar Road at 5 p.m. on 17th. Don't tell anybody else about this letter or the meeting. It is a matter of utmost importance. That's why he was there. Mr. Shamspeare, your actions on the afternoon of Miss Green's stabbing are exactly as described in this note. We got him. Ah. Personally, I find it hard to believe that's a coincidence. Don't you, Mr. Shamspeare? Well... Excuse me, can I say something? Yes, Miss Green? That card was delivered to me. It doesn't have anything to do with this odd man, does it? Well, why do you think so? Yes, but it's hard to believe it's merely... My lord, may I? May you what, Miss Green? I'd like to make something very clear about that card. Very well, then. You may amend your testimony to include details about the peculiar note. This note was delivered to me at my address. It's nothing to do with the odd man next to me, here.
Hold it!
I think you said that you received it the day before the incident, didn't you? Yes, that's right. There appears to be no indication of the sender's name or address on the envelope. It was in my letterbox, and that's all I know, I'm afraid. I have no idea who sent it. I have information regarding the death of Duncan Ross. Who is this Duncan Ross, please? A friend of mine. He attended the same art school as I do. He passed away in a tragic accident a month ago now, though. I wasn't sure what to make of that note, to be honest, but in the end I decided to go. So you found out what, the information was? Of course I didn't. You're not thinking straight. Whilst on her way there, she was stabbed in the back. As my learned friend hopefully remembers. Ah, yes, of course. She never made it to the meeting. Oh, Mr. Naruhodo, you pursued Mr. Shamspeare wonderfully there. It worked out well, hasn't it? We have a new clue at last. Alright. Now I need to pull off a really insightful objection somewhere. Well, as you managed to expose this promising new angle, I wonder if you should perhaps try to develop that. Ah, yes, of course. And yelling out objections isn't necessarily the best way to do that, I suppose. A ripped piece of envelope that was found in Mr. Shamspeare's room. It fits perfectly with Miss Green's possession. We present this now. This is proof that she was in Mr. Shamspeare's room.
Objection!
The day before the incident, exactly 1 week ago now, this note was delivered to your address. And upon carrying out the instructions in the note, you found yourself in the hospital. Yes, I did. It's terrible, everything that's happened to me. Yes, it is terrible. If it's all true, that is. Oh. What do you mean? Miss Green, have a look at this, please. It's the torn-off end of an envelope. Oh, is it? And it so happens that it fits together perfectly with the envelope of the note you received. Well, where did you find that? In Mr. Shamspeare's room. Hey, in my room. Mr. Shamspeare, do you perhaps remember this note from somewhere? Well, your actions that afternoon followed the instructions in the note to the letter. Come to the Slug and Salad on Briar Road at 5 p.m. on 17th, and so that's exactly where you went. Let me ask you again, Mr. Shamspeare. You already knew about this note, didn't you? And you, Miss Green. Ah, what did I do? As this torn-off end of the envelope proves, the note was originally in Mr. Shamspeare's room. So how is it that it came to be in your possession? I don't have the first idea. I'm just a fledgling artist after all. Well, you're not really going to state your occupation in response to something like that. There's only one explanation. You broke into Mr. Shamspeare's room and stole it. You did what? Sorry, thou has what? You broke? I mean, thou were in my room? What on earth do you want with me? It would seem that both witnesses need to testify again. Yeah, they do, Judge. They're both lying, both of them. Miss Green. Yes? Whilst you have the court's sympathy, I'm sure, for the suffering you have endured in recent events, anyone found here to be giving false testimony in a court of law will be duly punished. And that's what I like about Van Zeeks. When he realizes that a witness is lying, he basically says to them, if you lie in this court, you're going to be charged with perjury. He's done this a few times before, and I like that about him. Even though he is a scumbag at times, he is ignorant, he does, when he finds out that somebody's lying, he doesn't take that kindly. He gets really angry at the witnesses. Please bear that in mind. Yes, I know. Very well then, witnesses. You will give formal testimony again now. On the subject of this curious anomaly regarding the note Miss Green claims to have received. Witness testimony. The anomaly of the note. I do remember now. 'Twas a week ago, peradventure, that note was delivered onto me. Oh, now all of a sudden it was delivered to you, huh? On the day therein, I did tarry a long hour at the Slug and Salad, yet nobody came. Thereafter, on the evening I shared the company of the Japanese fellow, I did see the note had vanished. Now you notice the note vanished. I don't know what you mean. You think I snuck into this man's room, do you? Why would I? I think that the real story is a little bit different. I can point out the villain here, and as for that torn-off piece of envelope, I don't know anything about it. What I think Shamspeare wrote the note, and I think he delivered it to her, and I think when she snuck into his room, she accidentally dropped a piece of it. You now claim to have received this letter, do you, Mr. Shamspeare? Faith, 'tis so, my lord. And I would swear to have set it up upon the table in my humble lodgings. Yet, it is clear to me now that since I returned from the tavern that night, I have not laid eyes upon it. Well, that being the case, young lady, it would appear that your testimony was a lie? Is that what you think? How unfair of you to think I'm the one lying. I beg your pardon. I'm just a fledgling artist, as I said, and fledgling artists don't lie. That note was delivered to me at my address, besides. We all know who the liar around here is. If that's true, Miss Green, how do you explain the facts? This part of the envelope was without question found in Mr. Shamspeare's room. I don't see why I should explain. Sorry? I'm a fledgling artist. My job here is to just to say what happened, that's all. Well, that's not really an excuse. You can't just keep stating your occupation. It's your job to give the explanations and the proofs. You, the fledgling lawyer. The fledgling will do his best. Evidently, my learned friend's cross-examination is our only hope of learning the truth. Well, counsel. So now, Zeeks has realized that something else is going on here. I'm ready, my lord. Zeeks knows there's something else going on here. Very well, then. The defense will now proceed with the cross-examination of the witnesses. Miss Green clearly did break into Mr. Shamspeare's room. There can be no question of that. And that's how she acquired the note. Yes, two facts that are starting to lead me to a possible explanation for all of this. And it's not a pretty one. The anomaly of the note. I do remember now, 'twas a week ago, peradventure, that note was delivered onto me.
Hold it!
And can you shed any light in the contents of the note at all? Nay, sire, this as strange to me as a foreign tongue. Even with a knowledge of literature as great as mine own, verily, 'tis impenetrable. But Mr. Duncan Ross had lodgings in the same household as you. In effect, he was your neighbor, so surely you knew him, didn't you? Alack, if the choice is betwixt, I knew him and I knew him not. Then this with foreboding that I be forced to declare we were by some small measure acquainted. Despite your claims, though, you followed the note's instructions and went to the Slug and Salad. Presumably, that was nothing to do with your knowledge of literature. Mary not will have the better of me, sire, save for the lure of curiosity. So this true, I was compelled by my own eager heart to betake myself to the tavern. Yet in the end, my curiosity was not satiated. Now, I'm curious, who really wrote this note? Because I was thinking that Shamspeare delivered it to Miss Green, but now I'm starting to think, you know, why would Shamspeare want to meet with Miss Green? It doesn't seem like he knows her. He knows Duncan, but he doesn't know her. So who wrote that letter exactly and put that into Shamspeare's room? That's what I'm curious about. On the day writ therein, I did tarry a long hour at the Slug and Salad, yet nobody came.
Hold it!
So even after waiting for an hour, nobody appeared. Well, yes, sire. 'Tis as thou sayst. Really? You paused for a moment before you answered. In truth, when thou asked whether nobody appeared, I did suddenly recall. Really? Do you mean to tell the court that somebody did appear after all? I was not alone that night at the Slug and Salad, my lord. No, this returning to me now. I did treat my lips to almost clear water and mine innards to a premium crust of bread. And all around me danced a great many companions. What do you mean? Flies, Ire, flies. Good lord. In the name of Bub, what were they? Fairies, perchance, from a midsummer night's dream, come to taunt me. I think they were just flies. I can't help thinking that the flies ought to choose something more wholesome to buzz around. Is that wrong of me? Thereafter, on the evening I shared the company of the Japanese fellow, I did see the note had vanished.
Hold it!
When exactly did you notice it had gone missing? Such idle thoughts near occupy my mind. I am busy with greater ideas. In other words, you didn't notice. Several days passed between your outing to the tavern and Mr. Natsume's visit to your room. Yes, it would appear that the note disappeared sometime in that interval. Such idle thoughts near occupy my mind. I am busy with greater ideas. And I think that's why Shamspeare wanted to meet with Natsume that night, because he knew that Natsume would go back to his room that night, so he knew he'd be in his room. So then he'd try to sabotage the gas and asphyxiate Natsume just so that he could get into that room and get the convict's treasure. That's what I think is starting to be the answer here. And yet, during that time, Miss Green was comatose in hospital, was she not? Clearly then, she could not have been stealing things from Mr. Shamspeare's room. She did it before. She did it literally just a few minutes before she got stabbed. Yes, of course. It's all some sort of misunderstanding, isn't it, Mr. Prosecutor, sir? You have so far failed to give a satisfactory explanation as to how you came by the notes. So see, Zeke's knows now. I am not here to advocate for your defense, madam. I won't tolerate inconsistencies in your story. You would do well to remember that. Oh, dearie me. What's Lord Van Zeke's getting at? He knows the truth here. I don't know what you mean. You think I snuck into this man's room, do you? Why would I?
Hold it!
It seems that this note was actually delivered to Mr. Shamspeare about 1 week ago. Okay, so it was delivered to Mr. Shamspeare. Oh, does it? But for some reason, it ended up in your possession. And why was the envelope ripped open again? If Mr. Shamspeare already read it, then it wouldn't be sealed again. I can't think of any way that could have happened, except for you breaking into Mr. Shamspeare's lodgings.
Objection!
But for what reason would the witness have done that? I won't deny that Miss Green's possession of the note would appear to defy logic. However, until and unless her involvement in this case can be proven in some other way, any further pursuit of this note is meaningless. Miss Green could only have come to be in possession of that note by stealing it from Mr. Shamspeare's room. And yet, there's no obvious reason why she would have done such a thing. What if there was some other reason she broke into his lodgings, though? Yes, we should pursue that idea, Mr. Naruto. We're close now. I can feel it. We're so close to a breakthrough. I can point out the villain here. As for that torn off piece of envelope, I don't know anything about it.
Hold it!
So you don't want to tell the court the truth about the letter, is that it? I'm a fledgling artist, remember? Artists are nearly always introverted characters. Introverted. Fie, this fledgling doth readily cast aspirations about my nature. Yet I am an angel, a seraph. Birds do harmonize with my song, that wind doth frolic on my wing. Oh pity, wherefore dost thou accuse one so pure of heart, ample woman? Pure of heart, I don't think so. Even a fledgling like me can see you're just a failure. Tragedy. Thou shalt not know the true heart of an artist until thine instruction hereafter by death. All the days, oh the years, alas to enlighten thee, thou must wait so long and in vain. Mr. Naruhodo, interject with some clever remark. This is your chance to shine. I'm no Shakespearean actor, Miss Susato. No, as far as I can tell, the only thing that's going to resolve this argument is evidence. Oh wow, I predicted it. Yes. It's clear that Miss Green did in fact break into Mr. Shamspeare's room, isn't it? And that's where she found this letter. Yes, two more or less foregone conclusions that lead me to one terrifying conclusion. Terrifying. Yes, I'm afraid to say that the outcome of this cross-examination may well change how we look at this case completely. Okay, another possibility is that Miss Green is the one who wrote the letter, and she might have gone into, Shamspeare's room just to retrieve it. She might have written the letter just so that Shamspeare would leave the room so that she could poison the gas that, and then when Shamspeare would blow into it, he would get poisoned. Why, you think I snuck in this man's room? Why would I? It's either the bottle of poison or the hidden photograph. Let's try the bottle of poison. Let's see.
Objection!
It was to poison Shamspeare. Yesterday at the hospital, we saw you with this bottle. And though the contents split during the course of the meeting, a small quantity remained. Ah. According to the defense's independent analysis, Mr. Sholmes' chemistry set, the liquid that was still in the bottle was identified as strychnine. What? Strychnine? The very same poison that afflicted Mr. Shamspeare, yup. Ah? Miss Green, you broke into this man's lodgings for one reason, and one reason alone, to poison him. To cover the end of the pipe that feeds the gas lamp in Mr. Shamspeare's room with poison. Can this be? You broke into my room to... It may seem incredible to the court, but from the remaining clues, there is only one logical conclusion that we can reach. The person who attempted to take Mr. Shamspeare's life with poison was you, Miss Olive Green. Oh dear, oh dear. Oh dearie. I feel bad accusing her because she's not a bad person. Shamspeare killed her fiancé. That's why she tried to kill him. Order, counsel. Are you seriously suggesting this woman put poison on the end of the gas pipe with the intent to kill? Yes. Yes, my lord. There's no other way to explain the facts. But if Miss Green did indeed set this odious trap 6 days ago, and the victim had put his mouth to the pipe that very same evening as expected, the attempted murder would have happened 6 days ago, surely? Well, that's a very good point. Perhaps not, my lord. I beg your pardon? There was a significant police presence in the area that evening, on account of the incident on Briar Road. Local residents were being interviewed throughout the night as part of the ongoing inquiry. A circumspect criminal would likely have chosen not to carry out any wrongdoing at that time. Exactly. Lord Van Zeek's helping us. Lord Van Zeek's. And of course, the following morning, there was more activity at Mr. Shamspeare's address. More activity. Ah, yes. You mean his fellow lodger, Mr. Natsume, being arrested on suspicion of murder. That's right, and as the defense has already proposed. Oh, he would have no reason to blow into the gas because Natsume would have been in jail at the time. So he was probably searching Natsume's room, so there's no reason for him to blow into the gas. I see. That's why he didn't do it until 6 days later, because Natsume was cleared of charges and returned home at that point. So then he tried to kill him. Mr. Shamspeare is meddling with the gas in the pipe for a very sinister reason himself, to cause the gas stove in Mr. Natsume's room to go out, thereby asphyxiating the occupant. But once Mr. Natsume had been arrested, his room was under constant surveillance by the police. In the circumstances, Mr. Shamspeare had no reason to blow air into the gas pipe. His intended victim being in a prison cell. With the need to tamper with the gas removed, the poison on the pipe lay dormant. And then, 3 days ago now, the situation changed again. Right, Mr. Natsume's trial, which took place here at the Old Bailey, came to an end. The trial in which the man stood accused of stabbing Miss Green in the back, but was duly acquitted. The result that resulted in Mr. Natsume returning to his lodgings for the first time in 2 days. And, that very night, his gas stove mysteriously went out, and Mr. Shamspeare was mysteriously poisoned. In conclusion, the poison that was present on the mouth of the gas pipe had been put there in the victim's room some 4 days earlier. Mary. You see, this is... I was right in this in my earlier predictions. Shamspeare is an absolute scumbag murderer. With that new understanding, it becomes clear that this letter was all part of the plan. What plan? The court will recall that the note gave instructions to visit the Slug and Salad at 5 o'clock, and that the recipient should tell nobody else. The reason for those instructions are now clear. To ensure that the lodger would not be at home at the stated time. Exactly, I was right now, I called it now. So Miss Green was the one who wrote the letter, and then she came back into the room to retrieve the evidence, but she forgot that one piece of the envelope. And then she also poisoned the pipe. Miss Green wrote the letter. She knew that it was Shamspeare who did it. She figured it out, and so she wrote the letter, sent it to Shamspeare, because Shamspeare would then feel like somebody has evidence on him, so he'd want to go to the restaurant to check it out exactly what happened. That would leave Shamspeare's room vacant. Miss Green could sneak in at that point, and then she could put poison on the mouth of the gas pipe. To make sure I wasn't home? Exactly. While you were out, Miss Green could safely slip into your room, knowing that she wouldn't be disturbed. You mean to say that letter was written by Miss Green, yes. And in order to cover her tracks, she took it away with her when she left. Just after she smeared poison over the mouth of the gas pipe in your room. Order, order. What do you have to say for yourself, witness? Just who are you? Why did you try to kill me? Miss Green's motive should be obvious. Shamspeare killed her fiancé. Both of them are guilty. They're each both guilty. She's guilty of attempted murder, even though I'm kind of sympathetic to her. Shamspeare's a killer himself. And, Shamspeare's a murderer. Shamspeare's guilty of murder and attempted murder on Natsume, so he murdered Duncan Green and he tried to kill Natsume. It's all tied up with someone whose name we've heard several times already during the course of this trial. So, that's what's behind all this. You will share your apparent understanding with the court, police counsel. Which person is behind this woman's motive for the attack on the victim's life? Duncan Ross, here.
Take that!
Duncan Ross? That's right. Before the defendant, Mr. Natsume, took up residence in the lodgings of Mr. Garrideb's, somebody else was renting the room. Mr. Duncan Ross. I knew I'd heard that name somewhere else. It was all over the papers a month ago, when the man died in strange circumstances at the haunted lodgings. That does ring a vague... Of course, yes, I remember now. The young man they claimed was strangled by the convict's curse or some such. Sadly, my lord, it wasn't a curse of any kind, nor was it an accident. The man died as a result of Mr. Shamspeare blowing into the gas pipe and causing a gas leak into the room. It was murder, plain and simple. Look at how nervous Shamspeare is getting now. We're on the right track. Miss Green's not saying anything. Why is she laughing? Ha 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 ha. Well, what do you know? The world is so unfair. Curses, curious deaths. That's all people care about. If it's an interesting story they want to know, it doesn't cross their minds that real people are involved. And once they're bored, just 1 month later, once the story's lost its appeal, everyone's forgotten him. You mean you? Duncan was... Mr. Ross was Miss Green's fiancé. Fiancé? You may not have known until now who Miss Green really is, Mr. Shamspeare. But she's known exactly who you are all along. Because you're her sworn enemy. The murderer who took the life of the man she was to marry. Marry? Miss Green, is it not the case that in order to exact revenge on Mr. Shamspeare, you smeared poison over the end of the gas pipe? This court has turned upside down now. This is all quite extraordinary. Am I correct in my understanding that you now accuse both parties' counsel? Yep, both of them. Each on different counts of murder. This is so ridiculous, but it's true. Yes, my lord. That's correct.
Objection!
Inhaling so deeply, it appears that my fledgling learned friend has taken in a lungful of dubious gases, causing his judgment to be clouded. How so? What? Why would Mr. Shamspeare have wanted to kill these lodgers, as you say? You have completely failed to provide a motive to substantiate your accusation against the man. Yes, that's right, Mr. Reaper, my liege. I have been slight. This lies, all lies. I deny every utterance. And you'll have to forgive me, Mr. Naruhodo, sir. But I don't intend to admit to anything, either. Miss Green. I'm sure you'll think I'm being very rude, but I'm not going to be sent to the gallows for the likes of this scoundrel.
Objection!
But you broke into the man's room. If you didn't do it to smear poison on the pipe, what was your reason? I thought I'd have a look around, that's all. Sorry? Lying. You're right, I suspected him. So I thought perhaps I might find some evidence or something in his room. Evidence that it was him who took Duncan's life. Oh, vileness, oh villainy, oh tyranny, oh rotundity of a woman. But in any case, whenever I leave my room, I do turn the key in the lock. The whole place is falling apart. The locks on the doors are no different. Duncan showed me once how to unlock the door, with some terps and a piece of wire. Oh awfulness, oh tyranny, oh profanity of woman. I don't think you really have the right to say that, Shamspeare, considering you're a murderer. We will consider your trespassing on some future occasion, but for now, tell the court what you found, what evidence your search revealed. Well, I spotted the note that I sent him lying on the floor. When I went to pick it up, I noticed something. One of the floorboards was loose, and underneath it I discovered a secret hiding place. Eh? Yes, we also discovered that hiding place. Inside we found a newspaper cutting, a photograph, and an empty tin box. Ah, yes. Well, the thing is, when I found it, the box wasn't empty. What? There was something in it? Yes. This rather nice key. That's what was in the box. Oh, Shamspeare's freaking out right now. What are you doing with that? What the? Shamspeare's really angry. That key is significant. That key is probably the thing that opens the treasure that the convict hid. Every ounce of color has drained from his face. Give it here. Give it to me now. It's mine. I inherited it. What was that witness? What did you say? You inherited it? No, what's all this about? He inherited that key? It was obviously important to you since you'd gone to such lengths to hide it, so I took it. I don't know what it's for, but, you took something precious from me, so I took something precious from you. So what if it means you can't open something now? I don't care. Give it back this minute. Give it to me. Calm yourself, witness. So Mr. Shamspeare has tried, and in one case succeeded, to take the life of 2 lodgers now. Yes, his motive for doing so is the key to everything that's happened. It's true that there appears to be no motive to support the accusations against Mr. Shamspeare at first. But considering everything we now know, I think there is actually something that could explain it. What? I need to recall every piece of evidence at our disposal. Everything we've seen and heard. Because I'm sure that I just caught a glimpse of the link that runs through all of these events. In that case, counsel, I must demand that you present evidence to the court in support of your claim. What is it that you say can explain the motivation for Mr. Shamspeare's alleged crimes? "18 counts of burglary, 6 counts suspected murder, witnessed by his cellmate." That's probably Shamspeare. He probably told a cellmate about the money. Let me just check if there's anything else. No, it's this. I'm confident in that. Let's see.
Take that!
That's an official police report, is it not? The Selden file. How did you get a hold of that? Selden? The now sadly deceased Mr. Ross and the defendant Mr. Natsume have only one thing linking them. The fact that they had lodgings in the same room. Well, yes, we know this, certainly. A room that was formerly occupied by Selden. Until, that is, he was arrested by Scotland Yard for his involvement in multiple burglaries. I see. And so happens that the convict Selden left behind one very substantial mystery when he died. The sum 1,000 pounds worth of loot that he stole, which as yet remains to be found. Yes, of course. It's coming back to me now. It's written in his file here. 1,000 pounds lost en route to hell. That was how the paper summed it up. And it seems that one particular fellow inmate was with the convict in his final moments, and I think that was Shamspeare. It's not hard to imagine Selden entrusting that inmate with his most closely guarded secret. The location of the stolen loot, and perhaps a key, to unlock whatever container the valuables were in. You mean this key is... Mr. Shamspeare, it was you, wasn't it? You were at the capital offender's side when he died, were you not? Well, what are you talking about? This is a false charge, I tell you, a false charge. Check his criminal record. Check if he's been in jail before. The name of the inmate who was with Selden at his death isn't noted in this file, but a simple telegram to the prison where he died would quickly tell us how false the charge really is. But even if it's true, why would the man be so intent on killing every subsequent occupant of the convict's lodgings so he could get into the room? There's only one explanation for that, my lord. It was in that very room that Selden hid his loot. So, it all comes out. Yes, and having established that, all of Mr. Shamspeare's subsequent actions start to make perfect sense. When he was let out of prison following Selden's death, he made immediately for Mr. Garadeb's lodgings in the hope of renting Selden's old room. However, the retired army man was unable to offer him that accommodation of his choice, that's right. Because Duncan already occupied it, because Selden's old room had already been lent to someone else, Mr. Duncan Ross. Which is why Mr. Shamspeare subsequently devised his gas-based plot to kill the occupant of the room. And when he was successful, he presumably intended to inquire about switching it into the newly vacant room. However, a certain jittery someone had beaten him to it, Mr. Natsume. Mr. Sasaki Natsume, the defendant of this case, no less. So you decided to use the ploy with the gas again, didn't you, Mr. Shamspeare? This time to oust Mr. Natsume. All for one simple and a various reason. To get your hands on the 1,000 pounds of loot left behind by the dead convict. Looks like I'm gonna snuff it before they get to stretch me neck. Listen, I want you to have me loot. Anything to stop the coppers getting their mitts on it. It's hidden in the room where I was lodging when they got me. Here, this is the key to it. Take it. Always stay one step ahead, mate. See you, in L, I guess. Shamspeare. Smine. What did he just say? It's mine. That loot is mine. My God. Mr. Shamspeare. He's a psycho. It's all lies. I don't accept any of it. Why should I? After all, you don't have a shred of evidence. You can't prove I killed that fellow. Forsooth, I'm the victim here, remember? Isn't that right, ladies and gentlemen? If I don't admit to it, there's nothing you can do. Not true. Just because you don't admit to the crime doesn't mean you can't be charged with it. You can't arrest me. For the time being, anyway. Verily, you can't arrest the victim, can you? Isn't that right, ladies and gentlemen? He's lost it. I'm so close, I just need a few more hours. I swore to myself that I'd get my hands on it. And I can almost taste it now. Well, he's sealing his conviction. He's admitting to it without realizing it. Do you really think I just give it up? There's no question in my mind now. This man is guilty through and through. But he seems so utterly intoxicated by the idea of that loot. I'm afraid that however hard you press him, he'll never admit to what he's done, Mr. Naruto. There is a way. Pardon? There's one way I can finish him. No. He's already committed the most heinous crimes to get his hands on that loot. Which means, all we need to do is find it first. A fine plan. Were it not for the fact that the police thoroughly searched the room following the death of Mr. Ross. If it's there at all, it must be very well hidden indeed. Without conclusive evidence, I certainly cannot rule. But then you can't rule on Mr. Natsume either, Judge. The judge is being stupid. There's no conclusive evidence that Natsume did it, and now he's saying I can't rule on Mr. Shamspeare because there's no conclusive evidence. You see, this is ridiculous right now. This is really unrealistic. If only there was some way we could find the convict's loot quickly. This is the final piece in this complex puzzle. But I think we might have it in our possession already. What? Or rather, I think we may, well have something that can help us find where that loot is hidden. The handprints! The Mr. Shamspeare's skin prints, my lord. Yes, counsel. The defense would like to make a proposal about how to find the late convict's hidden loot. I believe we already are in possession of something that could give us a clue to its whereabouts. It's our last chance, so it has to be worth a gamble. Besides, we've used the same technique once already, and it definitely paid off then. Yup, Mr. Sholmes' skin prints. Very well then, counsel. Let the court hear your idea. What do you propose can use in order to locate the hiding place the deceased convict's hull? I mean, the handprints on the wall, I guess. If I'm not mistaken, those are Mr. Shamspeare's handprints on the wall of his lodgings. That's right, my lord. Expose the result of the defense's independent investigation of the scene. Based on a wonderful new discovery in the field of forensic science, by the great detective Mr. Sholmes. A great detective? Is that some kind of joke? Do you really think I'm going to be daunted by a man with such a ridiculous title? I should think the great bard ought to recognize such a title when he hears one, Mr. Shamspeare. Oh, there's Mr. Sholmes. Perhaps we should compete for the honor of most ridiculous title. Ah, this Herlock Sholmes himself. What are you doing here, great detective? Your usual, haunts are the filthy backstreets of the capital, are they not? Ah, Mr. Reaper, it's been too long. And I see your complexion has worsened since last we met. Mr. Sholmes. He does know Lord Van Zeeksten, well enough to say something like that in any case. Mr. Sholmes, though you may be heralded as a great detective by the population at large, that does not give you the right to come and go in my courtroom as you see fit. If I may, my lord, Mr. Sholmes' newly developed scientific method has helped us to uncover vital clues in this case already. Clues, you say? I call them skin prints, my lord. My method identifies every location touched by an individual under scrutiny. It's the method by which we were able to ascertain this gentleman's gas pipe activities. Ah. You need only a small sample of something the individual has previously touched to make an indicator solution. In your case, sir, I used the teacup you had been holding elementary. So now, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes. What am I to use as a sample to make the indicator solution this time? Thank you for offering to help, Mr. Sholmes. When the convict was arrested, he was living in what is now Sasaki-san's room. We need a sample to help locate Selden's loot that's hidden in his old room. What form will the sample take? Trying to figure this out right now. We need a sample to help locate Selden's loot hidden in his room. What form will it be? Form will the sample take? Present a person. Well, Miss Green has the key right now. Let's save here just in case. Present a person. Let's try Miss Green with the key. We will need something of Selden's in order to create the indicator solution to find his loot, the key Miss Green has. And something the convict owned happens to be in the possession of somebody listed in the court record. Yup, it's Miss Green. Upon my word, Mr. Naruhodo, your powers of reasoning appear to be on the up. So, which particular person do you have in mind? From whom we can obtain a possession of the late convict Selden to create the indicator solution? Miss Green, here.
Take that!
Miss Green. Ah, me? What do you want with me? The key around your neck, if you please. Sorry? That key belonged to Selden. There will be remnants of secretions from the man's skin on its surface that we can use. Very true. That is the sample we need. Using it, we can create the indicator solution required for Mr. Sholmes' skin print seeker. And find out exactly what Selden touched in the room that he used to rent. There we go, that's the Ace Attorney theme. We got it. Case over. We won. Mr. Shamspeare, as one's great to another, I assure you, if the late convict's haul is hidden somewhere in his former lodgings, I shall uncover it in no more than 30 minutes. I love that song. So, Mr. Shamspeare, the truth is well within our grasp now, and as such, you will never get your hands on Selden's stolen wealth. In that case, I'll gladly let Mr. Sholmes have this key. No, give the key to me. The detective shan't have it. It's over, Mr. Shamspeare. No, no. You're out of options now. There's only one thing left for you to do. Admit your guilt. Whoa. Oh, shameful spear. Despair. Be thy name. Well, it's over for Shamspeare. I never intended to kill the man. I just wanted to drive him out of the room. That's all. So you'd have time to find the convict's haul of stolen goods. Yet after you'd killed the young man, you still didn't move into the room. I asked the landlord, of course. I pleaded with him, but he refused. Why? I was 3 months behind with the rent, for one thing. Mr. Garrideb really has a lot to put up with. And he had the gas repair work done immediately afterwards, putting the room out of action for a while. And then, this Japanese man swooped in just the right moment to sign a new lease. Poor Mr. Natsume. What unfortunate timing. Then, 5 days ago, after the incident on Briar Road, when the Japanese fellow got himself arrested, I thought I'd finally have my chance, but it wasn't to be. No, the scene was sealed off and guarded by the police night and day. And if I remember rightly, Mr. Shelm spent the whole day in there reading books. I couldn't even enter the room, let alone search for the loot. Yeah, because Mr. Shelms was in there. Which is why, on the day Mr. Natsume was acquitted and returned to his room, you once again tried your trick of blowing air into the gas pipe that feeds the stove in his room. Unbeknownst to you, however, that action would lead you into a deadly trap. William Shamspeare. How does it go? To be or not to be? That is the question. From Shakespeare's Hamlet, Act 3, Scene 1. Well, let me tell you, in your case, it's not to be. That is the answer. You deserve to die for what you've done. Ha, ugh. At first, I really did think it was just a terrible accident. I'd never forget our conversation the night before Duncan died. The gas supply in my new lodgings are a complete disaster, you know, Olive. The gas supply? Yes, the stove always seems to go out in the middle of the night for some reason. That's no joke. They say it's the convict's curse. Oh, Duncan, please, don't stay there. I don't care how cheap it is. Alright then, if it's that important to you, I'll start looking for a new place. There are spare rooms at my house. Why don't you leave that horrible room tonight? No, I'd better not. We said we'd wait until we graduated before we told our parents, remember? But that was the last time we ever spoke. That very night, he fell victim to the gas. If only I'd known it was going to happen, I'd have insisted he left that horrible room that instant. But instead, all I've been left with is bitter regret. I stopped going to school, but something kept drawing me back to the house on Briar Road. I saw a stooped, Eastern-looking man with a mustache coming out of the house one day when I was there. He walked up the road to Grub's Grubbery for some food, so I followed him, and sat myself down next to him. He had some watery-looking soup and started to pick a quarrel with the publican. That place is cursed, I tell you, cursed. The ghost of that convict who used to live there is trying to suffocate me. I wake up in the middle of the night, freezing to death because the stove has gone out. The room is full of gas, and I can hardly breathe. But the pipes have been checked, no problem there. It's like I'm the problem. That's what they're thinking. But how could that be? Duncan was gone, and now this man had almost suffered the same fate. Could it really be a curse? Then I remembered. A rumor I'd heard about how the gas companies go around investigating the gas installations. A rumor? Ah, you mean... Yes, everybody's heard the stories, it seems, about how they go around checking the pipes. How anything connected to the gas can be extinguished by blowing air into the pipework. That's when it started. A little flicker of doubt in the back of my mind that just wouldn't go away. Was it really an accident, though? Once I'd had the idea, it wouldn't leave me alone. It plagued me day and night. So I bought this at one of the black markets in the East End. A black market? I'd never been, I just heard people talk about them, and you really can buy anything you can think of there. In some ways, being able to get my hands on this so easily made me even more determined. I had to find out, one way or another, was Duncan's death an accident, or was it murder? And your chosen method for establishing the truth was simple, but highly effective. Smear poison on the gas pipe you suspected the man of tampering with, and wait. If Mr. Shamspeare was innocent, nothing would come of what you'd done. But if he was guilty, he would pay for his crimes dearly. That's actually a very smart way in trying to figure out whether he did it or not. I found that the man I suspected, William Shamspeare. And then I wrote him this little note. I have information regarding the death of Duncan Ross. Come to the Slug and Salad on Briar Road at 5 p.m. on 17th. Don't tell anybody else about this letter, or the meeting. It is a matter of utmost importance. If he'd done it, I knew this would worry him enough, he'd be sure to go. So I waited to see if it worked. And of course, Mr. Shamspeare followed the instructions to the letter. I worked out where the gas pipe was straight away. So I smeared a good amount of poison I'd bought all around the mouth of the pipe. All the time praying that the devil's work wouldn't be done, and that it was all just some wild fantasy. Actually, no. All the time praying that the devil's work would be done, and that culprit would get his just desserts. I wonder what's going to happen to Miss Green now. Because even though she didn't kill him, that's attempted murder. I feel so bad for Miss Green, because she did try to kill Shamspeare, but Shamspeare killed her fiancé. So, you know, this is one of those times where you know somebody did it, but you don't really want to prosecute them. 3 days ago, when you were first stood in the dock before me, this whole affair seemed relatively straightforward. Yes, my lord. I certainly never imagined the depths of depravity that we should subsequently find lurking behind the scenes. It has been a long road, my Nipponese friend. Oh, yes. And one I certainly didn't envision, walking with you. Nevertheless, together we have reached the light at the end of the tunnel, as it were true. Miss Green. Yes, my lord. You will henceforth be stripped of your freedom, as punishment for the attempted murder of Mr. William Shamspeare. Yes, I know. And you, Mr. Shamspeare, you will be tried for the murder of Mr. Duncan Ross in cold blood, and the subsequent attempted murder of Mr. Sasaki Natsume here present. I hope that Zeeks is the prosecutor on that, because if Zeeks is the prosecutor on that, he's going to destroy him. Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? Yesterday, at the hospital, when you and your friends stopped me from ending your life by drinking what was left in the poison bottle, I wasn't myself. I can't even really remember what was going on through my mind. To be or not to be, I suppose. That's a question that's so hard to answer, it seems. Well, personally, I'm glad of your being here, Miss Green. Oh. And I'd like to believe that it's a blessing Mr. Shamspeare didn't die when he ingested the poison. For your sake, at the very least. Because of you, I chose life, not death. And now you've made the truth come out at last. Really, I can't thank you enough. Oh, Miss Green. Mr. Sasaki Natsume. Yes, my lord. The court declares that you are exonerated from all blame in this matter. Accordingly, I would call upon the ladies and gentlemen of the jury to present a verdict of not guilty. We are in full agreement, my lord. In that case, I hereby declare the defendant not guilty. We did it! Wonder where the fireworks are coming from. Court is adjourned. February 3:24 p.m. The Old Bailey. Defendant's Antechamber. Oh, yes. Yes. At last. Divine justice duly done. Divine, justice? My dear fellow, if there were any divine justice in this world, you would shave that mustache. No, this has nothing to do with my mustache. Some say that a luxuriant mustache is a sign of physical prowess, Mr. Sholmes. Locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, once again, you saved me from doom. I'm very happy to have been able to help, Mr. Natsume. Congratulations on your acquittal. You're second in almost as many days. I was first acquainted with and gained affection for English literature whilst in our great homeland empire. And then, by a twist of fate, I was brought to the land that bore the fruit of that literature. Only, the city of bricks and mortar became my prison. Try as I might, I never found my feet here. In the end, I confined myself to my room and lived life through friendly old books. You've had such a difficult time, haven't you? Ah, but a week ago now, I dragged you out of that dark and dingy room of yours, did I not? You did, and I've seen more of life in this week than in all of my years to date. And for the first time, I feel I've begun to see the true face of the English that's so far been hiding from me behind the wall of fog. My dear fellow, there is nothing special about the true face of the English, as you put it. Wheresoever one goes in the world, humans are human. There are few genuine differences. Yes, I think you're right. I finally started to see that, and I've come to understand something. I've worked out why I was attracted to English literature in the first place. It made me see that whenever our nationality, we humans all have the same hopes and fears. We're all just doing our best to live. Well said. I've come to feel the same way. I've made a decision too. I'm going to cut short my study tour here and return to Japan. What? Just when we'd become friends here in England. What a terrible shame. Oh, I know. That does tug at my heartstrings, it really does. But I've decided I'd like to take everything I've learned here in Britain and write something of my own. Novel of sorts, I suppose. That's how he becomes a famous author months later. Oh my, so you'll be creating your own literature, Mr. Natsume, how wonderful. Oh well, no, I mean, I wouldn't presume to call it literature. Why not, when that is precisely the definition, Mr. Mustache? I suppose you're right, yes. It will, in a way, be literature. But as of now, all I know is that I'd like to try my hand at writing. I have no delusions of grandeur. I, for one, would love to read your work. Well, all things considered, it may be for the best. After all, you have once again emerged victorious. Just don't tell me he's gonna be accused of murder a third time, because that would be really bad. From a battle with the Reaper. That's a very true. And there is no salvation for a person in the dock when the Reaper is the prosecutor. The desire to return post-haste to the perceived safety of your homeland is one I quite understand. My goodness, yes. Faced with such a terrifying prospect, nobody would consider that cowardly, I'm quite sure. But that's not why I'm leaving. I mean it. Objection. And that was the case that we found ourselves embroiled in 6 months ago now. Sasaki-san did indeed return to Japan and submitted a report about both cases to the government. It was on reading that report that Professor Mikotoba was prompted to visit the scholar. And barely any time later, Susato-san was given the news that she must return to Japan as well. I wonder why. How is that case relevant to Mikotoba calling Susato back to Japan? On the back of a telegram stating falsely that her father had fallen gravely ill. The only possible explanation that comes to mind is what happened after the trial on the following day. The day that we uncovered the loot hidden by the now deceased convict in his former lodgings. That treasure have something to do with it? But that's all the way in Britain, so far from Japan. Oh, the treasure, finally. 24 February, 10:13 a.m. Mr. Natsume's room. Let's find this treasure, finally. Oh, well done, Mr. Sholmes. How simply marvelous of you, to uncover the secret hiding place in just one day. Wasn't it's supposed to take 30 minutes? As I believe I told you, my dear fellows, skin prints are extremely useful in such situations. Wouldn't you agree, Gregson? Okay. Gregsy's been happily munching in agreement this whole time, you know, Hurley. Happily, I think perhaps humorlessly might be closer to the truth. So, it transpires the man fashioned a hiding place in the ceiling. And what's in it? What exactly is the loot? Let us have a look then, if you're ready. Let's examine the late burglar's haul. What is that? It looks to be some sort of neckband or collar. It has blood all over it. A collar. It's huge though. And look at the gemstones set in it. I can see why it was claimed to be worth 1,000 pounds. Perhaps I could have it as a belt. Oh, have you noticed on the inside there? There are some dark stains. You don't think. I wonder if that belongs to one of the people on the letter. Remember that letter that was found, the correspondence in case 5 of the names on it? And one of the names on there was, Kazuma. They could be blood, do you? I mean, there's quite a lot of it. On second thoughts, perhaps I won't have it as a belt. And of course, there's this emblem here. A large letter B, and a small crown. What does it signify, do you think? Oh, I hadn't noticed that, It's the family crest, probably, or the person's name. I feel as though I've seen that emblem somewhere before, you know? Where could it have been? That's enough of that, I think. What? What's the matter, Mr. Sholmes? All the color has drained from his face. He knows who that belongs to. Well, Inspector, I believe you ought to be taking this, aren't you? It could be valuable evidence, after all. It must be kept safely under lock and key. Ah, yes. Get your grubby hands off that, you lot, and hand it over now. So, Mr. Sholmes doesn't want us to know who it belonged to, too. I wonder if that has something to do with the Hound of the Baskervilles. Right, the Hound of the Baskervilles. The story that Iris wrote that Sholmes didn't want her to publish. And the end of it is B, Baskerville. I wonder if that's a name. And there's a B on that. I've never seen a color that large before. And all those jewels certainly look to be extremely valuable. But that's not what... Sorry, everyone. But that's not what stood out the most to me. At least not once I'd noticed it. Those dark marks on the inside of the collar. Those stains. Could they really have been blood? Well, that was a funny case, wasn't it? But it's all buttoned up now. And you look very pleased, Iris. I am, because I was starting to wonder what I could use as the basis of the mouse story in the magazine. But this case will be perfect. It's been so fascinating. You're talking about the latest installment of the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, I presume. The Hound of the Baskervilles. Right. And that's a dog collar. That's a dog collar is what that is. The mystery of the knife in the midst, and the mustached man and the convict's curse, perhaps. I could make it all a two-part story. Oh, I can't wait. A word, please, Iris. Yes, what is it, Hurley? I'm sorry, but you can't write about this case. It's out of the question. What? Why not? It's a great case. Then I shall have to insist that you limit yourself to the first of your two titles. The second must never be written. Is that clear? Yes. Why doesn't he want that story written? He's been suspicious about that in case 5, too.
And so it was that the second of Souseki-san's cases became buried in obscurity. Now, looking back, I feel I understand. I can see why Mr. Sholmes forbade Iris from publishing the story. It would take a little longer before I saw the link between everything that had happened and would happen.
And would happen. That's what's scary.
For it wasn't until 2 months after the arrival of Susato-san's letter that events began to unfurl again, with an incident that took place at the very heart of the eagerly awaited Great Exhibition of London.
Oh, great, so something else happened now. So this mystery is even bigger than we thought. That's the end of that case. That's the end of case 2 in the second game. There's still 3 cases left. So thank you guys for watching. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I definitely like that case. So far the Shamspeare case is my favorite case in the second game. We've only had 2 cases so far. The first one and the Susato's, and then this one. This one's my favorite case so far. In the second game, my favorite case probably has to be the McGilded case. But thank you guys for watching. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. I'll try to have the next part up for you guys as soon as I can. If you guys enjoyed this series, please do drop a like because it does help the series out. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, everyone.